Yes, hello folks, welcome to the weekly Manchester United podcast. I'm your host as always, Fab Byrne. I'm on my own today. Trying to do this on the fly. I haven't had a lot of time, so Colum's on his way back from Guadalajara. Of course, he was at the Canelo John Ryder fight, so we will come back with him at some point. I miss his abuse. I hope you're all doing well. Obviously, we want to talk about what happened yesterday in the West Ham game, and of course the Brighton game. Some of the talking points about that, David De Gea, some of the criticism of Erik Ten Hag, some of the squad weaknesses, what I think, what you need to do over the summer. Obviously, how disruptive the takeover has been. I don't think it's a coincidence that United's form started to drop off a little bit. Really, since the bid process has started, how destabilising that has to be for Erik Ten Hag. And of course his coaching staff, not just his coaching staff but the administrative staff at United, the recruitment staff, and the fact that you cannot run a business this way. This is perhaps the final insult from the Glazers, and what will happen next, of course, with new ownership, and hopefully that comes soon. But even if it does, I still think it's going to be very, very difficult for Erik Ten Hag to properly execute this summer and do what he wants to do, and where that's going to leave United. So I'll also ask you to throw me a few questions into the comment section, because as I said, I'm on my own and I'm going to try and waffle through this for a while. So apologies to all of you who have to listen to this shit on my own. First of all, I want to talk about David De Gea because David De Gea has been getting a lot of criticism, justifiably in my opinion. The paradox of this David De Gea, of course, he's in the race for the Golden Glove, most clean sheets in the Premier League. I don't know if that's still the case, but it was the case up until last week. Of course, I'm not even going to say uncharacteristic error yesterday. Seems to be one a month in David De Gea. And then it really got me thinking about David De Gea's evolution from when he came to United. And has he really changed? Because I think back to David De Gea when he first came to Manchester United. What were his weaknesses? He was a slight, skinny boy, young. They were concentration lapses. They were poor on crosses. Wasn't the most physical goalkeeper. Not great with his feet, but still a good shot stopper. I remember him playing at Stamford Bridge against Chelsea, and he was brilliant. Shot stopping. I think it was his second season when he came to United. But if you look at David De Gea's evolution, all he really did to me was improve on his strengths. He never improved his weaknesses. He's still poor on crosses. I thought he was lucky yesterday to get off with that Mikel Antonio foul. He was quite weak in that. The concentration lapse with his feet. His feet are wrong. His feet were wrong against Sevilla when he tries to control the ball coming out from the back. Those are mistakes that Alisson doesn't make. Alisson makes mistakes too. Those are mistakes, but Ederson doesn't make. He makes mistakes too, but not those mistakes. You can't take Manchester United to the next level with a goalkeeper that belongs to a different era. This is a goalkeeper not suited to play the way Erik Ten Hag wants to play. Maybe he'd be suited in a team that plays a deep line, where they're a mid-table team, where he's going to face a lot of shots, where they're not playing it from the back. I think David De Gea would be suited to a team like that, but not to a team that has ambitions to win leagues, that has ambitions to finish top four. The problem for Ten Hag, of course, is most of his budget's going to go on forwards this summer. So how do you find the budget to, at least in my opinion, bring in two forwards, bring in possibly another centre back? I'm going to assume Maguire will leave, a right back, and Alexis McAllister type midfielder, Frankie de Jong type midfielder, because they need at least one more of those, and then a goalkeeper. And I really think that's primarily why David De Gea is still at the football club, because there's always been more pressing needs to address, so he's always escaped the cult. The problem is, when you look at that defence, I doubt it's particularly reassuring to any centre back to have him behind you. He doesn't come for crosses. He's being targeted. You can see it in games. You can see it where As soon as United kick off in the game, teams are on top of him, pressing. They know his kicking's poor. You know, he gave a ball away again yesterday a couple of times. He got away with it. Didn't get away with it against Sevilla. They don't have the quality in the centre of defence to get away with it when you're playing with Maguire. So I think, I just did a podcast with Zach Lowe, who knows Portuguese football inside out, and we talked about Diogo Costa being a replacement, and he thinks that would be a really smart move. And I would be a bit more defensive of De Gea if this was something that just started happening. But this has been something that's been present in his game for years. Like I said, he's never really eradicated it from his game. He's never really got the issues that he had at 21, 22 out of his game. By 31, 32, there's still the same problems. If you look at the Villarreal penalty shootout, doesn't save one of them. I had no confidence that he was going to save Alexis McAllister's either. Didn't save any in the cup semi-final. In fact, he didn't even get close to anyone, if I remember. If I'm a goalkeeper and I'm facing a total of 18 penalties, I think it's reasonable to expect you save one. And he didn't. I can't even remember the last time De Gea saved a penalty. So he's a good shot stopper. His reactions are very, very good, but that's not enough. And I say that about other players too. People are making a case for Wout Weghorst on the sole premise that he can press. It's not enough. If you want to play for Manchester United, you have to have more than one skill. Harry Maguire doesn't have enough to play for Manchester United. I've had some people tell me it's abuse. Do you know how many kids here every day that are not good enough to play for Manchester United? It's clearly not abuse to tell Harry Maguire that he's not good enough to play for Manchester United. Harry Maguire knows that. What I would say about Ten Hag, Ten Hag's been getting criticism. I can't find it within myself to criticise him. I'm not saying he's perfect, but it's hard for me to see what else he could have done. He doesn't have any alternatives at goalkeeper that are worth considering. There's no depth there. I think he's been at centre back. Losing your two first choice centre backs is something that any football club in the Premier League would struggle. That's the foundation that you're built on. And United have a worse defensive record than Chelsea, but most of those goals came in a couple of games. They came in the Liverpool game. They came in, of course, the City game, which are concerns in itself. The Brentford game, of course. Most of those goals came in one or two. In a few games, so it's a bit. Hold on a second. It's a bit. Oh, let me take. Sorry, 1 second. My kid is texting me, yeah. So it's a bit misleading because like I said, he has the most clean sheets in the Premier League. So I think losing Martinez is being so telling. I think not just in terms of his leadership, because that's obvious, but I said this right before he got injured, that Martinez as a centre-back, his ability to play football is really underrated. He's a brilliant football player, and he was the start of a lot of attacks. You would see Martinez playing long balls down into the channels that released Rashford, released Anthony. And I think United really, really missed that. I think Ten Hag's done a brilliant job, to be honest, managing that centre-back problem with Maguire, or with those Varane and Martinez's absence. I mean, I didn't think that Luke Shaw would be capable of playing centre-back to the levels that he has, and he's done a fantastic job. I know he made that mistake against Brighton, and it's inexplicable. I don't understand what he was doing. The irony is, he was brilliant up to that. Complain about referees and all that there, but look, to me, yes, the free kick was soft against Brighton, but we see he was given in games all the time, and ultimately what's costing United is their inability to score goals. United are sitting on the same goal return as Leicester. At the start of the season, we'd said if United are going to finish top four, we're going to need to get multiple players into the 20 goal mark. Of course, once Rashford got injured, there was a major concern about who would pick up the slack with those goals. And Martial's got 9 in 3 seasons now. We know most of them are injured. He's been injured, he's been gone. So it's hard to criticise him. He's clearly not fit enough to play football. And, Ten Hag's trying to do this with Weghorst as well, which there's no one. I don't even think there's another team in the Premier League that has a weaker strike force than that. Weghorst and Martial. It's just nowhere near good enough, and it's very difficult to ask more of them. Sorry, my kid looking for my car keys. It's very difficult to ask more of them when there's not much you can ask of players that aren't capable of giving you more than what they're giving you. Weghorst just isn't a Premier League striker, and he shouldn't be kept on. Absolutely no chance. You need to meet, in my opinion, 2 strikers. When I look at other Premier League strikers, they're miles ahead of what United have. If United scored in both of those games, the Brighton game, Southampton game, West Ham game, even the Newcastle game at home, top 4 would be secured. They missed golden opportunities in those games, and last minute decisions have cost them. It cost them with the Liverpool Spurs game. It cost them against Brighton. Even go away with the Newcastle game away from home. So many chances. They once again another clean sheet for Newcastle. Not really threatening. Jadon Sancho has been off it, nowhere near it. I'm not quite sure what else Ten Hag could have done. I think losing Garnacho as well is also something that often gets overlooked, because Garnacho was coming on changing games for United. That Fulham game away from home, he scores that goal 1-0 right before the World Cup. Big 3 points. And there's been plenty of other games. What game was it to get injured in? It was the game before that where he come on scored. He's been someone that United have had to rely on to change games, because he's quick, he's got good feet. I think he come on the Leeds game, get United back when they drew 2 each. He played quite well in that game. Another stupid 3 points thrown away. Ultimately, when you look at what will cost United if they scrape into the top 4, and that's a big if, because now they're going to have to win probably 3 out of those last 4 games. They'll have to win those 3 home games. It's going to be something that they have to learn from, because this summer, and it really worries me, because I look at the lack of support that Ten Hag has, and I'm told that he's really, really angry, and he should be angry about what's going on behind the scenes. His inability to do his job. I thought it was also very telling that Jim Ratcliffe and the Qataris put an article out 10 days ago saying that they want to take over transfers. Well, I'm quite sure that's the consequence of being told by Ten Hag's team that absolutely must happen for United to achieve their objectives next season. And it's not just about the players that they bring in, it's about the players that they need to get rid of. And when you look at the problems at Chelsea and other football clubs that are littered with problems, PSG, one of the most consistent aspects of that is a usurped manager's power to bring in who he wants and to get rid of who he wants. And once players know that a manager's impotent, or they don't have the ability to get rid of them, or they don't have the ability to replace them, then they'll find excuses to fail. And United players have done this so many times, and this is always the reason why this happens. This is what they did to Rangnick. Whenever Rangnick was essentially in a similar situation to Ten Hag right now, where he couldn't bring anybody in. He didn't have the power to get anybody out. And you saw United's, even if you look under Mourinho, how many times they tapered off towards the end of the season. It is a consistent problem. And they did it under Solskjaer too, other than the year Solskjaer finished 3rd. And that was the year they signed Fernandes. United have finished poorly. So I think when I look at that squad and what needs to get done this summer, I would say Ten Hag needs, to me, at least 5 players. A I don't think Dallo is good enough at right back. I don't think. I think they need another centre back if Maguire goes, possibly a young centre back. I'd like to see Amad Diallo get a chance. He's been exceptional out on loan, obviously. I think Ten Hag talked about recalling him in January. If he had that choice back, he would recall him. You know, they need to move Van de Beek on. Maybe possibly send him back to Ajax on loan with option to buy, or probably put him a swap deal for Kudus plus a bunch of money. I would love to see someone of that calibre, because when you look at the squad United are competing against, you know, you take a look at City's bench. They can bring Phil Foden on. You know, they have depth on that bench that United could only dream of. Even in goalkeeper. You know, they bring young Ortega on. You know, they've got Kanji at right back, Aki left back. You know, they've got Kyle Walker, they've got Rico Lewis, Ruben Diaz, John Stones. I mean, that depth is ridiculous. Bernardo Silva in midfield. They've got De Bruyne. I mean, if Bruno Fernandes, Jadon Sancho, and those players are playing with Haaland up front, I mean, we're ruining them on assists. But assists is really a story of two parts, isn't it? It's also about converting assists. And when you're playing with strikers up front that don't convert, that also affects the confidence of your midfield. It affects the confidence of your wingers, because they get confidence of creating assists, of course. And it affects the confidence of the team. If you don't score goals, you can't win football games. You're not unlucky if you have a lot of chances that you miss. Not being able to finish chances is like a boxer that doesn't have a knockout punch. You lack a major skill at the very highest level that's going to decide the outcome of games. You know, if you're a boxer, one of the first things you're told is take this out of the judge's hands. And when you don't score goals, you leave yourself vulnerable to bad officiating. Like United got at Brighton. I think Andy Marner didn't do him any favours, but I was having a discussion with Scott Patterson, who I really, really like, by the way, on Twitter about this. Where Scott, of course, and I understand this because I've done it myself, focused heavily on Andrew Marner and said if Andrew Marner doesn't give a free kick, United don't lose. But to me, the bigger story was, once again, United's profligacy. I mean, you look at West Ham. West Ham hadn't beaten any of the top 9 at home. Lost more games than they've won at home. And United can't score against them. I mean, it's completely ridiculous. You look at Brighton tonight, what they concede 5 against Everton. United can't score against them. To me, De Gea's mistake almost doesn't get mentioned if United scored 2 or 3. To me, the handball to Luke Shaw is irrelevant if United take their chances. So to me, I don't understand why the focus would be on anything other than the fact that United can't score goals, and that's the thing that worries me. Going into the last 4 games is where are the goals coming from? I don't know. Hang on, sorry folks, my kid's trying to find my keys. My car keys. Sorry. Should be a bit here. I don't know where they are. I don't have them. They have to be down there. They have to be down there. I don't have them. Nope. I thought they were still in the car. Sorry about this. This is live. What's that? Okay, then they have to be hanging up. 1 sec. I'll be right back. One sec, I'll be right with you. I found my car keys. Not fucking scary, will you? They'll have to be down there somewhere. They'll have to be down there somewhere. What? Thought so. Fucking hickeys. Anyway, let's get back to where we were. Yeah, so look, the thing that concerns me the most is the fact that United aren't scoring goals. And it's hard to see where those goals are going to come from. You know, the problem with Martial is he doesn't have a body fit enough to play football, 3 times a week, or twice a week. And I thought in the semi-final against Brighton, I want to be kind to him because I don't think it's his fault. Brighton had an enormous amount of time playing out with the back. And you could see in the game on Thursday that he was being asked to press, and he did for a while. Second half, United once again lacked fitness, they lacked energy, they lacked confidence. And you're looking at that and you're going, if they don't finish top 4, it's going to completely redefine that Carabao Cup. Because that Carabao Cup is only, to me, a successful trophy if you excuse me. Fuck, I don't have the lungs I used to have. I'm running down upstairs and bollocks. Yeah, that Carabao Cup to me is only a successful trophy if United finish top 4. I would worry about United in the FA Cup final, playing like the way they've been playing. If they don't finish top 4, it's going to ruin confidence. It's going to redefine Ten Hag in a lot of ways, because I would say, much like Arsenal, in the sense that Arsenal, if they finished second, would have taken that at the start of the season. I certainly would have taken at the start of the season being right off the top 4. A point clear, game in hand, 4 games to go, 3 of them at home, against Wolves, Fulham, away to Bournemouth. Who's the other home game? It's going out of my head right now. Let's see, who's the other home game? Someone help me out in the comments. Manchester United fixtures. Oh yeah, Chelsea. I know Chelsea beat Bournemouth, but thank you folks. But I still think United will beat them at home, or should beat them at home. If you'd have said to me at the start of the season, you'd be sitting with a Carabao Cup, FA Cup final, 4 games off top 4, game in hand over Liverpool, a point ahead of them, I would have taken it. But when you break down United's season into 3 parts, the start of the season was poor, we know. Then they found form, but the last final third, they've looked nothing like the United of the middle of the season. And there's obviously some obvious reasons for that. Martinez being out, Varane being out, losing Rashford when they did, and then Rashford coming back into a team that lacks confidence. That's not as good as the team that it was. I mean, if you look at the United that played against Barcelona, United looked nothing like that team. And that's a major, major concern, because confidence is hard to get at this stage of the season. Sorry. Even when you look at the Villa game, I mean, if Lindelof doesn't clear that off the line, which, the last 10 minutes was extremely nervy. They'd probably be in a situation where they're going to get caught. They have to win, for me, at least 3 of the 4 games. I don't think Liverpool will win all their games between now and the end of the season. I think they'll find it difficult against Leicester. I know Leicester were bad there. They got 5-3 against Fulham, but I still think they'll find it difficult. They can't defend either. And they've been quite lucky in those games. I mean, they were lucky against Spurs, they were lucky against Fulham, they were lucky against Brentford. I mean, that goal that was disallowed from Mbeumo looked borderline onside to me. And I noticed Jurgen was quite quiet about referees at the weekend because I thought they had some really fortunate decisions. So I still think Liverpool will drop points, but I look at that top 4 and think, United have to be in it because I think it's going to be crucial to how they recruit this summer. Ten Hag needed a striker in January, didn't get one. They needed one last January, didn't get one. And even when you look at his summer recruitment, he was never given proper support from a recruitment perspective because the Glazers were obviously thinking about selling the club from the summer. So it's essentially affected his recruitment from day one. I mean, it wasn't until United lost to Brentford that they really panicked and went out and spent all that money. If there's only one, perhaps, criticism I would have of Ten Hag would be, given what you know about the central striker position, and maybe they did this because of the Ronaldo situation, and by January it was too late to do anything different because the club just didn't have the resources, but did you really need to spend 100 million on Antony? I wonder if Ten Hag knows now, and knew then what he knows now about Ronaldo, would he have spent that 100 million on Antony, and rather than spend 100 million on Antony, buy a central striker? I think had United have spent that money on a central striker, they'd have had a better return. And I rate Antony, I do. I think he's been quite good the last month or so. I know he's, he doesn't score enough goals. We United definitely need to get more from him. I don't worry so much about his assists because, like I say, I think that's partly down to the fact that I don't have a central striker. I think he's had a decent first season for a winger. I think if you look at other wingers in the first season that have went for a lot of money, he's had better seasons than Pepe. He's had better seasons than Sancho, better season than Jack Grealish in his first season, and maybe even, Grealish has had some really good moments this season, but he's playing in a much better team. I mean, if you look at Sancho's assists at Dortmund when he was playing with Holland, he was a different football player. Once you need to get a proper number 9, I think you'll see the best out of people like Sancho. I think you'll see the best out of people like Antony, I've no doubt. But maybe that would be my only criticism. I can't criticise him over Eriksen. I think Eriksen, even when he came back from his injury, still led United on assists. If Bruno Fernandes was playing with a better striker, we'd see a better Bruno Fernandes. Sabitzer. For me, one of the issues with Sabitzer is it's really hard to get good squad players because you're getting one of two things. You're getting a young player who's happy with not playing every week, or you're getting an experienced player that's not good enough to start every week. If you get somebody in that squad player role that is as good as the players you have in the starting lineup, they're not going to accept being on the bench. So I would probably, Sabitzer, I'd probably take him. They'd probably keep him. But I do feel that United have to buy somebody that will start every week alongside Casemiro and put Eriksen in a position where he can come off the bench. He doesn't have the legs anymore to be starting 3 games in a week. I don't think it's fair to expect that. Another thing that kind of concerns me about Eriksen is he doesn't score enough goals. That's something that when you look at United's goal output, it's far too concentrated through one player. And at this level, good teams will find a way to shut that down. And I know City are primarily concentrated through one player, but there's goals all throughout that team, and Mahrez and De Bruyne and Julian Alvarez, and United just don't have that variety. So for me, with Ten Hag, when you look at why United are struggling, he's struggling down to issues that belong to last season. in my opinion. Not down to issues that he's got wrong. If I look at United's problems, it's squad depth. They don't have the depth if someone gets injured in a key position to be able to replace that player and retain their levels, especially someone like Lisandro Martinez, who's, in my opinion, irreplaceable. Rafael Varane's quality, to me, is irreplaceable. Those are two key players, not just in how United defend, but how they start attacks. Casemiro, I don't think they have an alternative to him, where they can retain levels. Scott McTominay and Fred just don't have that quality, as we know. I would probably let Scott McTominay leave. I might keep Fred. But it's hard for me to see if United sign another top-class midfielder why they would need Scott McTominay. I'm not even quite sure how I would define McTominay as a midfielder. What would you say he is? At this point in his career, he should have a specialised position, easy to define, and say this is what he is. But I don't know what that is yet. So I would probably let Scott McTominay go. If you said to me, if I asked you, what do you think United would miss without Scott McTominay, what would you say to me? Or if another club was going to buy McTominay and they said, what type of player are we getting? What would you say? With confidence. I'm not sure what I could say about Scott McTominay with confidence that he's got a standout attribute. He obviously, Ten Hag likes him because he gives him height on set pieces. I think there are certain attributes that he has that are physical but not technical. I know he's quite good for Scotland, but in the way Ten Hag plays, I don't see any way McTominay can stay or should stay. He should want to leave. Fred, he's been poor the last few weeks. With Fred, you can come on and be amazing. Like I remember him in the Leeds game, he gets booked, but was still amazing away from home. I know Ten Hag got criticised when he took him off against Sevilla, but anyone that watched that PSG game will know with Fred being booked, the right thing to do was to take him off. I compared him a bit to Ji-sung Park. I was watching United City last week, 4-3, where Ji-sung Park was playing. Some people slaughtered me for that, but honestly I think there's some similarities there. He brings energy, but the problem is when he's bad, he's really bad. And I'm not sure. I'll go back to what I was saying about Weghorst and De Gea. You need more to be a Manchester United player. Now I know we're talking about bits of being squad players and what have you. There's some room for players being squad players that aren't the most gifted in the world, but I don't think Fred's going to get any better. Now maybe United have more pressing needs and to get rid of him, but I would say by next summer that should be a player United should be looking to move on to replace. I don't think he would be getting into City or Arsenal's team. You look at Arsenal's midfield, they can all pass the ball. They're all very technical. Odegaard's fantastic. Jorginho's very good. Not a huge fan of Xhaka, but technically that Arsenal midfield is very, very good. Fred worries me technically. I think he lacks that, and when you're a United player, you have to be comfortable on the ball. Same with Van de Beek. How long do we give this guy? I know he's been unlucky with an injury this season, but there has to be a cut-off point. And like I said, he occupies a key position in midfield because you can't carry that type of... you need more depth, and you can't carry those players that aren't capable of coming in and influencing games. I think it's time United made their mind up on him. I would definitely give Jadon Sancho another year. I'd want to see Sancho in a United team with the top class number 9 of a Harry Kane or an Osimhen, because I really feel that in a team where they have a central striker focal point that's that is someone they can play through, that has a high conversion rate. You look at United's conversion rates, appalling. I think you'd see a much better Jadon Sancho, same with Antony. So I would definitely give him another year. I think they need to make sure Amad Diallo stays at the football club next season, and I would like to see Garnacho stay. Anthony Elanga, I don't think is a Manchester United quality player. He should go. Maguire should definitely go. But the problem is every United player that would go, with maybe the exception of Elanga, needs to be replaced. So, I think if United can get 5 or 6 players or something, which I think is realistic, was what Ten Hag would have liked, and what they get 5 last summer. I think it would be reasonable to expect a title challenge next season, not win the league, but certainly United should be within 9 or 10 points of the top. I think they should be able to go away to places like Anfield, to places like to Man City at the Etihad, and make sure we never see a repeat of what we saw this season. That can never happen again. They cannot be going to these places and conceding 6 and 7. Top teams don't do that. And there's still a little bit of PTSD, like a relapsing drug addict with United sometimes in these big games where you still can't trust them 100%. And that result at Liverpool scares me about the cup final. If United go into that cup final where City need to win that cup final to win the treble, and United don't go out there giving every last ounce of effort, then those players should never be forgiven, because I thought I wouldn't forgive them for last season. And some of them shouldn't be forgiven for that, in my opinion, for what they did last season. Because, we talk about Rangnick being an idiot and all this here. Before a player plays for a manager, right, they play for themselves. They play for their families. They play for the people that never made it, who were their friends. They play for the communities they come from. They play for their fans. They play for the badge on the shirt. If you're a player that plays for a manager or decides not to play for a manager, then you can't trust that player, because that's called motivation. Motivation is what happens when the deer is being chased by the lion, and the adrenal glands secrete, and it allows them to temporarily achieve great agile feats to get away from a predator. But then, once that is over, they reach their base level again. It's temporary. And that's exactly why you don't want a player saying, I play for a manager. You see what happens at Chelsea, making fun of Graham Potter and all this nonsense. You think Cristiano Ronaldo cared what manager he played for when he was in his prime? Messi? Do you think it would have made a difference? One of the things I never see when players play exceptionally well is saying, all my success is down to the manager. Or when their agent goes in and negotiates a new contract, they never turn around and say, all my success is down to the manager. So clearly all the failure is not down to the manager too, right? I would like them to take responsibility for the failure in the same way they take responsibility for their success. And you need to have players in that team that pick who they play for. Those are people you can't trust. This is true in all walks of life, whether it's football, whether it's your business, whatever it is. These are conversations parents have with their kids. Your success and failure in life will not come down to this person, this person, this person, this person. It will come down to you. And that's the type of people you need in the dressing room. People with insatiable appetite to be successful, no matter who the manager is. People who define themselves by success, who want the respect of their peers, and who care about their fans. Not people who are going to turn around and say, Ollie's an idiot, Rangnick's an idiot, this guy's an idiot, this guy's an idiot. When's it ever you? So, that's the type of thing that I think Ten Hag will get out of United's dressing room if he's given the support this summer. This, obviously we need his takeover closed. Anyone that's ever worked for a business that's been in the process of being sold will know how stressful that is. For Erik Ten Hag to not only get the response from the players that he wants to keep, but to get the response in the dressing room, to get the response from his staff, there has to be clarity given. You know, the Glazers are going to have to come out, or at least have a conversation with Erik ten Hag about what they can and can't do this summer. That needs to be done now. We're in May. By June, you need to be making signings. United are nowhere near that. Absolutely nowhere near that. They're nowhere near being able to sit down with a player and make a promise. Sit down with an agent and make a promise, make a commitment on a contract, make a commitment on where they're going to play a player, what type of team they're going to play in, what type of players they're going to be surrounded with. They're in no position to do that. That is a total disgrace. It's a total disgrace that we are sitting here in May still not knowing who is going to be writing the cheques this summer. United have very competent football people that will be being headhunted by other football clubs who will right now be asking themselves, should I go? Because ultimately, what is there left for me here to stay for? You know, there's no certainty over the future. And Ten Hag's the type of guy that I think that if this doesn't get sorted out in the next 2 weeks, 2 to 3 weeks, we'll start talking about this in the media. Because he's going to have to make a decision. Is he going to sacrifice his reputation for the owners of this football club? Or is he going to come out and start telling fans that deserve to know what's going on inside this football club? Because nobody else is. Quite frankly, I'm bored to fucking tears with it. I just want to see the football club bought. So that I know like with the Glazers, lots of people are upset if Jim Ratcliffe does a deal where they could stay on as 20% owners. My view on this is the Glazers are getting paid no matter what happens. They're getting paid if the club gets sold 100%, or if they remain as minority impotent shareholders. If the Glazers remain as minority impotent shareholders, as an absolutist, I'd want them gone completely. I loathe them just like you do, but that would be a scenario I could live with. As long as they don't have any influence in shaping the football club, shaping its culture, shaping its business plan, and have any say on the board. If they remained in the background as stakeholders who would benefit at some point in the future of a sale, or Ratcliffe buying them at 100%, I would have taken that scenario a year ago. I hope they go. I'm desperate to see them go, and I know people want Qataris for their own reasons, but I think we need to look at PSG and realise they're, you know, I can understand fans wanting blank checkbooks, which won't happen anyway, but you know, once the sugar high signings wears off, if you look at why the PSG fans are rioting, it's because the football club isn't being run consistent with their culture, with their identity, with their values. You know, young Parisian talent being overlooked for expensive superstars that are now protesting outside their house. Yeah, we all want Mbappe, we all want top players of the football club, but do we really want that? You know, I don't want United being run in a way that's not commensurate with its values. I still want to see a route to the first team for young players coming through the academy. I still want to see a United that you know, has sport and merit. I don't want to do what City do. You know, and even they know it's lifeless. It's reflected in, I mean, I'm sure you saw this, but when Mara scored that penalty against Sunderland, or against Sheffield United in the semi-final, there was limbs everywhere. I mean, even the City fans know this is lifeless. So, I hope whoever buys United runs it consistent with its values and does invest in youth and invest in the facilities at the football club to make sure that that part of our culture never changes. So, I think if you look at Ten Hag, the first manager we've had probably since Ferguson, where you've really felt like he knows what he's doing in the transfer market, he knows what he wants, and you can see United's taking shape on the field. Everything else, you know, everything previous to that, you know, Solskjaer had it for a period where it was completely undermined by Woodward with Ronaldo, who Solskjaer never wanted. undermined by Woodward when he asked for Caicedo and didn't get him, undermined by Woodward when he asked for Bellingham and didn't get him, undermined by Woodward when he asked for Holland and didn't get him. City now renegotiating Holland's buyout clause out, something United thought United were more concerned about how much they could sell him for before they bought him, without thinking, if United buy Holland, maybe that means he'll never go to City. Maybe you could renegotiate that buyout clause out. And what about the trophies you win with all the goals that he scores? This is what happens, and this is part of what Ten Hag's suffering from, is recruitment being done by an investment banker, which isn't going to get fixed in one season. So, I think people, in my opinion, need to appreciate that given what Ten Hag's had to work with, he's done a fantastic job. There's no other team on the verge of top four. Two of the teams in the top four are sports washing projects. Arsenal are the only team in the league right now above a sports washing project. Unlimited resources. I think outside of Arsenal, two sports washing projects, Ten Hag's done a truly unbelievable job getting United in the top four, which I didn't think or post Brentford was possible. So I can't criticise him for a lot of the things that have gone wrong this season. I think when you look at what has gone wrong for United this season, the root causes are obvious, in my opinion. It's squad depth. It's the fact that they should have given money in January for a striker, and if that's what ends up costing them top four, be interesting. The Glazers couldn't afford a striker in January because they've run the club completely into the ground. The debt's above $1 billion for the first time ever. The projected losses even going into 2025 are outrageous, which means people say they're going to keep the football club. They won't have an asset to sell in 2 years if they keep the football club. The bonds are due in 2 years. They'd have to refinance that debt. The Feds just raised the interest rates out here again last week. The cost of that debt would be astronomical, the refinancing of that. So, it's a football club that has to get sold one way or another. I think the buyers know that they have to take either Ratcliffe's offer or they have to take the Qatari offer, but they can't do nothing. People talk about Qataris coming in with derisory offers and what have you. Both Ratcliffe and the Qataris know the Glazers can't hold on to United without investing money. And if it doesn't come from the Qataris and it doesn't come from the Glazers or Ratcliffe, who's it coming from? Investment companies. What are you investing in? It's an asset that is borderline insolvent. There's no revenue to secure your investment against. The stadium is on the verge of not getting a safety certificate. The stadium needs probably about 25-30 million investment just to make it fit for purpose. You look what the revenues, even if they finished in top four, most of that gets swallowed up by the fact that players' wages goes up and bonuses go up. There's really not a massive financial dividend for qualifying. You have to do well in that competition. So there's no immediate cash injection where the Glazers would look at United and say this makes sense to hold on, because Super League obviously is not going to happen for any time soon. So this was always the point for me. They were going to sell once they exhausted the club's revenue and resources to the point where they couldn't refinance anymore, they couldn't borrow anymore, they couldn't take out dividends anymore. Then the football club would be sold. So, do you think they've intentionally destroyed the club? We'll go to some questions. No, I don't think they intentionally did it. I think a couple of things caught them by surprise. COVID obviously caught them by surprise. There's been a split obviously in the family since about 2019, where the rest of the families wanted to sell. They found it difficult to raise the revenue to buy out their siblings. They went to 6th Street in 2020 to try to get revenue to buy out the siblings and couldn't. So I don't think they did it intentionally, but I think the lack of oversight, lack of strict control parameters from the top, the fact that they've always felt that once it gets to this point they could sell the club. and they could cash out. I think it was just used as nothing more than a personal enrichment tool, to the point where you could no longer do it, and then this would be the point they would sell. So, but even they know United have to invest. If they didn't, if they felt that United didn't have to invest, they never would have spent a penny. But they know that retaining ownership of Manchester United not just going to require investment in infrastructure, but request investment in the team, which they don't have anymore. So, yes, they are the 100%. If they weren't, they wouldn't be doing this. Into the show, I miss Martinez, 100%. Probably a bigger loss in Rashford when Rashford was out injured. And I think since he's been gone, United, I know they haven't been terrible defensively, but he brought so much more than just, I mean, that second leg against Sevilla, I don't think United lose it like that if Martinez is there. First of all, he doesn't make the mistake Maguire makes. So, and I think from that Sevilla game, United have looked terrible, which of course was where he's been injured. You can see a scenario where fans turn, no, not right now, because I think most fans are well aware of what the major problems are. If Ten Hag was in his third season and he'd done Mourinho level investment where he's sitting on 11, 12 players, then I think it's fair to criticise him. But he's in his first season, and maybe with the exception of Anthony, all the signings have been excellent. So, and I still think Anthony has the ability to be an exceptional signing for United. So, you have to realise it's his first season in a team that has no striker. Any winger's going to struggle on that team. Let me see. I think a definitive decision will take over this week. I've been saying this for 2 weeks. There's a lot of chatter in financial circles about what is going on, and it's obvious a lot of people have used people in the media in this process to leak certain things, to put certain things out there, to serve certain agendas. I would say with a high degree of confidence, not certainty, that the Qataris leaked the Jim Ratcliffe situation, where the Jim Ratcliffe bid that said that he was going to keep the Glazers on. Who else would put that out there? And so I think there's been a bit of games going on both sides. They were obviously gagged after the first round of bids by the Glazers, who didn't want them releasing statements saying things like, we're going to restore United back to their former glories, we're going to be custodians of the fans and the club, which of course makes the Glazers look bad. They already do anyway. Let me see. Imagine all they got Casillas. I mean, and by the way, it wasn't just those. You wanted Thiago Alcantara. If you looked at Ten Hag's shopping list last summer, it was Solskjaer's in 2020. A left-footed centre-back, a winger, a defensive midfielder that could link, which is why I wanted Thiago. And Joe Glazer refused to let him sign Thiago Alcantara because of his age. Thiago Alcantara begged United to sign him ahead of Liverpool, and Joe Glazer wouldn't. Same with Skriniar. He wanted Milan Skriniar, which he's now going to PSG this summer, and Joe Glazer refused. And that's 100% factual. So yeah, that happened a lot. Where Solskjaer wanted top level players that he wasn't allowed to sign. I'm not saying he would have been successful, but Ten Hag would have a much better squad in his hands if he'd have been allowed to sign those players. That's Bushmaker. What are we doing? This obviously can't go on in perpetuity. This has to end at some point, and I'm quite sure that the Qataris and Jim Ratcliffe will put a deadline on them. But more importantly, I think what will force the issue is the internal issues at United, where key personnel, who are usually the first to go when buyouts happen, will eventually start taking things into their own hands and going to other clubs, other businesses, because of that uncertainty. I mean, none of them are so financially wealthy where they're probably more making good money, but none of them are so financially wealthy where they can't afford not to care. I mean, they have mortgages, they have kids, they have lots of other things to take care of, and I think the Glazers can't lose key personnel. So this is not something that they can. If you look at the losses they're incurring right now at the football club, this really isn't something that can continue on into the summer. So I do think we're at the end of this process. It has to be. Let me see. Garnacho could play a vital role last few games. Yes. Well, didn't he say he wasn't going to the Under-21 World Cup because he was being called up to the senior national team? So that would mean, of course, if he went to the Under-21s, he wouldn't play in the FA Cup final. So it was interesting. Ten Hag was asked about him yesterday why he didn't play. And obviously, United were trying to do other things in the market or in the team during West Ham, but I think he'll feature this weekend. So what else we got? Yeah, got that one. Who can we sign? Young players before coming good. Yeah, I know that they like Vitor Roque in Brazil. I think that the South American market is something United have looked at quite a bit. I think they think there's good value in there. Obviously, they like Julian Alvarez. I know United, John Murda and the recruitment team have been looking at a lot of young players out there. So I could see United supplementing their squad with a couple of players from that part of the world. Okay, well, I'm not touching that. Well, we'll see. Alright, folks, listen, I'm going to run. These are not easy to do on my own. I'm not usually that used to doing them on my own. Sorry if there were gibberish and all over the place. Had to look for my car keys in the middle of this, so my apologies. Have a great day, great evening, wherever you are, and I'll bang out a proper podcast this week. Take it easy.